Hello, and welcome to the Bougie in a Backpack podcast. I'm Mackenzie from Travel Mackenzie, and I'm here today with Robin, who is the founder of Around the World with Kids. She did her first international trip at 10 months old to visit her mother's homeland of Honduras, and she's refused to stop traveling since. With her husband and 2 kids in tow, she shares tips on traveling with kids, how to save on travel, and detailed destination guides. She's a working professional with her own marketing and strategy consulting firm, providing flexibility to take the family on adventures from their home base in San Francisco. So Robin was a speaker at our October summit where she spoke about planning a trip with growing kids. So welcome, Robin.
Hi, thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So before we get into your topic about planning a trip with growing kids, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you started traveling when you were about 10 months old, but what did travel after that trip and beyond going into adulthood kind of look like for you, and what makes you excited about travel?
So, my dad was in the Navy,
Oh, okay.
and so he is the one that infused me with the travel bug. We were very blue collar growing up, so travel was often camping and going up and down the East Coast. I probably saw every Civil War battlefield and every tourable naval ship up and down the East Coast growing up. And then about every 2 years, we'd go to Honduras, and we would also go to Puerto Rico, which is where my dad was from. So that was a lot of what our travel was, with the occasional trip to Disney World or a cruise thrown in there. But that was mostly what travel was. Once I entered college, I knew I really wanted to study abroad. I got into the study abroad program at Dartmouth, going to Barcelona for 3 months. And that kind of changed my perspective. 19 years old, first time on the plane by myself, first time international by myself, flew across the Atlantic Ocean, first time living in a city, and I loved all of it. I loved going out, I loved exploring, I loved trying new things. It was very different than any of the travel I had done as a kid, and that was when I made the decision that I wanted a stamp in my passport every year from that point forward. And I mostly accomplished that until about, I think, 2020.
Oh, yeah.
And so after that, that's when I started traveling more, did some trips to Europe with some friends, I met my husband at a very young age. I got married at 25,
Oh, okay.
and we traveled. He was from India, so I got the chance to explore India a lot with him. We did Turkey together. I did a consulting job for a while that had me traveling to Israel and Spain and a bunch of other places. And in 2009, the stick turned blue and I was pregnant. We had been trying for a while, so it was a very exciting time. But I remember on my baby moon, everyone telling me, like, oh, enjoy this now because your travel's going to end. And I was really angry when people said that. I was like, what do you
Yeah.
mean my travel's going to end? I don't want my travel to end. And so I made the decision that it wasn't going to end.
I love that.
And so it hasn't. I now have a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and they have been to Switzerland, Poland, India, obviously, several times, Mexico, Canada, Hawaii. Like, we've just traveled all over. We've made it a point that big milestone birthdays are trips, not parties or big presents. So we did Hawaii for my oldest 10th birthday. We did Paris for my daughter's 10th birthday. And for my oldest 15th, which is coming up, we're going to go back to Hawaii. That's what he wants to do.
Wow. So are those trips do your kids pick the destinations for those milestone trips?
They do. So that's the big thing. They pick the destination and they help me plan. Now, I do a lot of it. I'm not going to lie, but I give them a budget. I have them look up things. For my oldest 10th birthday, they saw this article I found about riding tubes down irrigation canals in Kauai. Their favorite activity. We loved that. It was so much fun. My daughter, she's a dancer. And so Paris is where ballet was founded. So her big thing, she wanted to see the Paris Ballet. And so we got to
Wow.
watch Midsummer Night's Dream at the Opera Bastille. Really wanted to see Giselle at the old Opera House, but it was sold out by the time.
Wow, I love that they take such a big role in planning it. I feel like it probably helps a lot to get their buy-in. Like they're the ones
Yeah.
choosing the destination and they're choosing some of the major activities that you do there, which is like a big like you're teaching them a lot of responsibility by doing that, but also they probably want it to be fun, right? They want to be like, well, I
Yeah.
chose this, like it's going to be fun rather than, oh, mom decided we're going to go to the ballet, which is like the opposite of what happened.
No, it is exciting. And I do make it a point to have them help me plan pretty much every trip we go on. A lot of times it'll be like, I started with just, what do you want to do? Do you guys want to go to the beach? And then I graduated into, okay, I want you guys to research and give me one thing that you want to do. Right. So, like, they actually, when we go to San Diego, they now have favorites because they've done the research and they know exactly what they want to do. It was funny because we recently went on a trip to Eastern Europe and I knew a lot about it. So I made do a lot of like history, World War II history stuff. We went to see a concentration camp. We went to see Auschwitz.
Mm.
But the big thing about that was I promised them the next day it would be a low key day. They didn't have to do anything. And they were like, we're going to keep you up to that. And so, like, they were happy, and they're teenagers now, right? So they were happy to spend a day in the Airbnb watching YouTube and ordering DoorDash.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's
was
like
like,
also you probably need that
okay.
after such a heavy
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, you do. They definitely did.
Yeah, that's a good strategy for because it's just something you might not think about because it feels oh, this is a waste of a day if we're not like constantly doing something. But I think it is important to build in that kind of time, and especially if it's gonna prevent your kids from being like grumpy about their trip.
It's funny because when the kids were little and toddlers, you had to build in that break. Oh,
Hmm.
partly because they needed a nap, they needed a rest, they needed to run around on a playground and get some energy out. Whatever it was, when they were toddlers, you had to build in that break. And then we hit what I thought I like to call the magical age of traveling with kids, like 5 to 8 to like 11, 12, where they don't actually need that break as much. They don't take naps anymore. They're excited. They're interested. They still think you're cool. So they'll do whatever you want. Like, that's a great age. But then I've actually hit this point, which is surprising. They need downtime again. And I
Hmm.
remember that was the biggest surprise about becoming a mother of a teenager was how much downtime teenagers need because their growth is insane at this point.
Hmm.
Their sleeping patterns change. And so you have to adapt as a parent as well. Like you have to adapt to understanding they're not going to be able to absorb as much. They need more downtime. They need that time. It's not a nap anymore. It's to lay and free their brain up and to text with their friends and to watch mindless videos. And let's be honest, as adults, sometimes we need that too, right? In vacation, we kind of push that to the vacation traveling, we kind of push that to the side because we're go, go, go. We want to see everything, but they're not there yet. And so you have to kind of build that break in.
Yeah. So you said
Huh.
the ages 5 to 8 you consider like the sweet spot, like the ideal age for
I think
traveling with kids.
I would say it ranges a little bit. It could go as
Hmm.
young as 5 or as old as 8, but I would say like, let's say 7 to 10, right? Is that magic window. I mean, my daughter was as young as 5, but my older, it took a little bit of time, right? But that 7 to 10 was that magic window where they really loved to do everything with you. And they didn't need as much of a break.
Yeah. Are there any places that you hope to travel with your kids when they're older, like that you've saved for like when they're like a little bit older, like now they're teenagers, right? Both of them are teenagers or
Yeah.
just about
So Auschwitz was one of them. I
okay.
really wanted to wait until they were older, and now we've gotten the chance to do that. The other one was when we gone to India in the past. We've often just gone straight to Madras, which is, oh, sorry, not Madras, Bombay and Madras, which is where our family mostly is. And so we haven't done as, like, they haven't seen the Taj Mahal yet. They haven't seen Goa yet, and they haven't seen Kerala, which are some of my favorite parts of India. I really wanted to wait until they were old enough to appreciate it. Unfortunately, because of some things in COVID and family, we haven't actually been able to go back. So I think they're old enough to appreciate it now. But those are kind of the things. And we were also, the Ajanta caves in India was something we were saving for when they were older. And then the other one that I'm not really saving, but I go back and forth on is the Maldives and
Mm,
like Fiji. I really, really want to do those over the water bungalows.
yeah.
And my husband keeps asking me, like, well, why don't we do that for our 20th wedding anniversary, which is coming up next year? And I was like,
Hmm.
but I don't want to do it without the kids.
Okay, so you want to do it with the kids.
Because I think they would love, like,
Yeah.
they would love the water. They are both water bugs. They would spend
Okay.
all day in their swimsuits swimming out the sea. Like, they would just appreciate it so much. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so nice. Yeah, because that's like that you were like thinking because you probably would be there and you're like, oh, the kids would love this. Like you feel bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. So I guess on the flip side of that, are there any places that were easier when your kids were much younger to travel to? Or like I guess whether it's I mean there's probably some obvious ones like places that are more like kid destinations like maybe like Disney or if or like different countries that were easier with younger kids.
So you'd be surprised. I found it fairly easy to travel with the younger ones to like cities and places like that when they were still stroller bound because you could strap them in and they wouldn't go anywhere. So we did a month in Buenos Aires in Argentina when my daughter was 18 months and
Wow.
my oldest was 3. I think that's about right. I tell everyone how family friendly Buenos Aires was. They had playgrounds in every neighborhood. Every restaurant we went into had a high chair. Every time we got on a bus, people would clear out for us to sit down
Wow.
and have the giant double stroller with us. I remember one time being in like a restaurant where they had they had like the singers going on, and
Hmm.
my daughter just didn't want to stay in the high chair. I put her down for a second. She ran up. The singer was very close to us, and she's standing in front of him, and she's like dancing as he's singing, and he picked her up and carried her around while singing to the crowd, just holding her. And I was like, yeah. And on our way back, we were going back to the US. We had a very tight connected connection in Houston. That's where we had to go through immigration. This is pre-global entry. There's like one person running immigration on Thanksgiving Day, and we go up to the guard and we're like, "Hey, we have 2 kids and we have a really tight connection." And they were like, "Yeah, so does everyone. Get back in the line."
Oh my
I was like,
gosh. It's like just the stark
"Hey!"
contrast.
Like, welcome back to the US. Yeah, so Argentina was amazing. When they're little and they can kind of be in a carrier or a
Hmm.
stroller, they're actually so much easier to travel with. You go a little slower because you got to stop to, feed them or let them play or run out their energy. But they're actually kind of a little bit easier to go. They go along for the ride a little bit more. Once they start getting to that like toddler age, starts to get a little bit more difficult.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's interesting because you think I don't know, you think maybe like with a baby it's harder, but I could see that where, they can't
yeah,
really move, so,
yeah,
strap them into a stroller. And that's interesting too that there's certain countries that it's probably easier to just exist with a baby than it is to be here in the US.
exactly. I actually started my blog because I wanted to travel during my maternity leave and I wanted to record the memories for my children. But I traveled with my daughter at 3 months old for a month to India. And I told everyone she was the easiest baby, right? She was 100% breastfed. So, like, I
Wow.
wasn't dealing with any water issues or formula issues. She was at that age where she would go with everyone and she would smile and cute poo, and everyone thought she was cute. I said, now the 2-year-old, that one was a pain.
So you brought both of them to India with
Yes.
you for a month. Okay.
Yes.
Were you by yourself or was your husband there too?
No, my husband was there too.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Well,
I want to go back to something you said earlier about how when you were, you're about to have your first child and people are saying, oh, this is the end of travel as you know it kind of thing. And I feel like that's not the first time someone said that to someone, but I feel like during different stages of your life, people will always say that. They're like, oh, you graduated college, like you're going to start a job now. You don't have the freedom to travel, or you got married, now you're not going to be able to solo travel, like all these different things. And I guess like my question for you is what surprised you most about the different transition from traveling, maybe like traveling not married versus like as a couple versus traveling as a family, and like what has surprised you about those different types of travel?
I think the biggest surprise is how much I can keep in my mind and mentally keep track of. So
Like it expands
somehow,
every stage.
exactly, somehow I've become the mother duckling, right?
Hmm.
So I think on a recent trip, my oldest was like, I want to hold and keep track of my own passport. And my husband looked at them and said, your mom doesn't even let me keep track of my own passport. So I think that's one of the things is like it's just gotten a little more complicated, right?
Hmm.
So when you go from solo to with someone else, it gets more complicated because I'm keeping track of two people and we're working together and have a schedule. Now I still do some solo travel and my husband and I still do couples travel without the kids, right? But it's gotten more complicated as life goes on. No longer can it just be like, are our two work schedules matching up now? Do our two work schedules match up with the kids' school schedule, or is this an okay time to pull them out of school for a short period of time, right? So like that all has to line up now. So scheduling becomes more complicated, and also I'm not going to lie, it becomes more expensive.
Hmm.
When it was just me, that was, it obviously once it was me and my husband, it was more expensive, but we were also both working, so we were able to pay a bit more. And then we added on two people that don't contribute to the household income. And again, in the beginning, right, they were little and they could share a kid's meal, and then it was two
Hmm.
kids' meals. Now they both eat like adults, and we've made the mistake of like introducing them to nice foods. So
Oh,
they don't want McDonald's, they want sushi in Japan and, steak in Argentina. Like that's
that's funny. You've created this problem.
so we've also had to get more savvy with how we pay for these trips, right? And so we've gotten much better at managing some points and miles. Now I am not a points and miles creator. I
Hmm.
by no means have the best strategy, but what we have done is we have figured out a strategy that works for me and my husband, like just using some key cards that gets us the maximum amount of points. We put everything on those cards and then we use those points a lot. We use them to fly my mother in to take care of the kids when we want to go somewhere. We will use them. Sometimes we're lucky. We managed to get one time 4 tickets to Mexico City during the kids' February break
Oh, wow.
for free. Right.
Wow.
And I was like, that's amazing deal. Right. We have family in Mexico City. Like that was the cheapest February trip ever. And then sometimes it doesn't work out. Like we went to Europe this summer, we could only get 2 tickets on points. But those 2 tickets on points, that still saved us like $3,000 or $4,000.
Hmm.
So that's always, a consideration. That's a big savings. And those types of tricks have helped us be able to take more trips. And then the other thing is, so, there's just the complexity, there's the cost. Yeah, those are the big changes, I think.
Yeah. So in terms
Mhm.
of cost, besides points and miles, is there other strategies that you try to think about and implement in different trips you're taking, like different ways to save
Yeah.
money here and there, especially because there's like it kind of scales with the more people you have, like each little savings you can do?
So with the points and miles, it's mostly we'll use for tickets. In terms of housing, we do a lot of Airbnbs
Mm-hmm.
or like timeshare rental over getting a hotel room because that in the end it ends up being cheaper with more space. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we could for a week if we wanted to squeeze four of us into one hotel room and everyone would be unhappy.
Yeah, one bathroom.
Exactly. One bathroom, two beds. Like, no, not okay. So we have found that the cost benefit analysis is essentially like Airbnbs or, condo rental, things like that to make it cheaper. And then with that, we will almost always like Instacart or Amazon Prime groceries or, just
Oh,
run to the grocery store and the first thing that we do, we always have enough breakfast in
okay.
the room. I would love to tell you that we cook meals and we pack sandwiches, but the one big thing I will say, and this is how you keep a marriage happy. My husband is the cook in the household. And when he
Mm-hmm.
goes on vacation, his big thing is he doesn't want to be cooking.
Okay.
That's what he does. And he loves food. So, we always tell ourselves we're going to try and eat cheaply when we're on vacation. That is the budget that goes over every time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, that's the budget that goes over every time.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's check out this cool restaurant. So, but we do try to keep it like a little cheaper or lighter for lunch, and then we'd like to do a nice place for dinner. But we always get stuff for breakfast, and that just works out for everyone because then we can have a slow morning as well. Like my oldest likes to get up earlier, my youngest likes to get up later. We'll come. Me and my husband will have our coffee, and then maybe some toast. And so it's just like it solves everyone's problems.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is in terms of activities, I like to look and see what free activities are available, but I also will just sort of research and kind of figure out what's the best activity bang for your buck. I try to have a budget for activities and then I'll tell everyone like, okay, this is going to be our big activity at this one place we're going to go. What do we want to supplement it with?
Hmm.
So, kind of how we manage it.
So you do some like planning beforehand. So both like planning with
Lots of planning beforehand.
the meals and then planning with the activities that you don't surprise. I mean, there might be some,
Yeah,
you splurge here and there because that's how is vacation fun without that?
exactly. Yeah, so exactly. We try to, especially anything that's like a big thing, we'll try to look for a discount ticket or something like that. Lots of work portals these days have these like
Mm.
discount tickets. So we actually just went through, I'm taking the Girl Scouts to Disneyland in
Oh, wow.
February. And so we went through a friend's work portal to get these discount Disneyland tickets that include Lightning Lane so we could save the girls money. And then, we're going into someone's condo that we're renting and putting the girls on sleeping bags on the floor. So it's all about planning. It is possible. It's just all about planning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good tip in general for saving money. Just
Yeah,
plan ahead.
exactly.
I wanted to ask you about traveling with a home base because I know that's something you've talked about before. So what does that mean to you? Like what does it mean to travel but having a home base?
So, I flirted with the idea of wanting to be a digital nomad with a family, but I very quickly realized, and then, we did a month in Argentina. It was kind of like the flirting with the idea. And I
Hmm.
quickly realized I'm not cut out to be a stay-at-home mom. I love my children,
Hmm.
but I don't have, I flirted with the idea of being a teacher in college, and I quickly discovered that I don't have the patience for that. And so I very quickly realized like that was just not going to work for our family. And my husband really likes his routine. And then we discovered at a young age, my oldest has some sensory issues and a routine's really important for them as well. So having a home base, buying a house here in the San Francisco Bay Area was important, but I didn't want it to mean that we still didn't travel. And so that we make use of every break that we can get, and then also I do, unpopular opinion, I do take the kids out of school for about 5 days a year, usually in one big chunk, if it's for a trip that I think is really important that will kind of supplement and benefit their education. I mean, I took
Mm-hmm.
them to Washington, D.C. for a week, and I'm telling you, they learned more in a week in Washington, D.C. than they did in class that they would have if they
Mm-hmm.
stayed in class that week. But I also want to point out I am privileged. Both my kids do well in school. They do
Mm-hmm.
above average. And so I've also, and I work very closely with the teachers to let them know what I'm doing, what I'm doing. They've often, added some supplemental work that includes wherever we're visiting. So I've been very lucky that way. So that's kind of how we've managed to get as much travel in as we can. But while still kind of being home, having a home base and having all their activities. I would say when they were younger, it was significantly easier. It was nothing to pull them out of school for preschool or kindergarten for a week, and even as we got into grade school, I've always been able to handle it. Middle school got harder.
Yeah.
Now I have a high schooler, and we really haven't figured out if we're going to be able to do it. A high schooler who's taking some college classes.
Uh,
So we
yeah.
really haven't been able to figure out if we're going to be able to do it or not. Their schedules get crazier as well. My daughter this past weekend was in a musical. And so, we have to sort of schedule around all of that. What has happened is my husband and I have started taking more couples trips.
That's nice.
So, it just balances out a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So how often do you take couples trips?
We usually do at least once a year, and then sometimes we'll tack on an extra weekend here or there. So the issue is we don't really have a whole lot of family nearby. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we have a couple's trip that's long, it requires more planning. And by planning, that usually means flying my mother out to stay.
Yeah. That's where those points come in handy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, my husband has a job that has him doing presentations different places more. And so I've sort of taken advantage of that. We did 10 days in Rome. We did a week in Savannah recently, and he's up for something in Barcelona. So
I think he has to do it. He's very important that he be there, present that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Tacking on, like taking advantage wherever you can and like doing that. However, if it's
Mhm.
something that's important to you, I think also just making it known if you have a job where
Yeah.
the opportunities like that exist, like sure he throws his name in the hat for places like his that he knows that you'll want to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my life has changed as well. So when the kids were younger, I was really in a very corporate job, 40, 50 hours a week, 9 to 5s in the office. The pandemic happened and everything changed. And in our case, I think for the better. That was the point when I left my corporate job, started my marketing and strategy consulting firm. I've been consulting ever since. I love the flexibility of this. I'm on contracts. I try to keep my contracts to 20, 30 hours a week. So that way I have more time to work on my other passions. This is when I've been able to grow my blog. I've been working on writing a book. Hopefully that'll be out by next year. Um, you know, and I've been able to do more with this travel, take the kids on more interesting things. I actually took this whole summer off, which is the first time I've done that in a long time. We did a road trip on the East Coast, and then we did 3 weeks in Europe. Like that was just an amazing opportunity for us.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could have done that if I'd stayed in the corporate world.
Yeah, that's really awesome that you're able so was that you took the skill set that you had from your corporate job and just created your own business that you can do like similar work, but you have more control over it. Like you're your own boss and you have more flexibility.
Exactly. Yes.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah, and I've been doing marketing and strategy for this industry for about 15 years, 15 plus years now. And so I have a name, I have a reputation, I have a lot of contacts all throughout
Mm,
the industry. And so I've been able to scramble together enough contracts and you know, it's earning enough to keep our family happy and flying.
yeah. And you can work remotely.
Exactly. Yes, I work 100% remote.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I think that's great advice for people who if they feel like they're not if one of the things holding them back from traveling is like their work life balance is a little off kilter, maybe think about how you can restructure that and build a life around that.
Yeah.
So your topic at the summit in October was about planning a trip with growing kids, which we've talked all about today. But if you give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what people will get out of watching your presentation if they get the VIP goodie bag, which we do have available in the show notes, even though the October summit is come and gone, but we do have, if you missed out on that and you want to see Robin's presentation, you can get the VIP goodie bag there. But yeah, what can we expect from your presentation?
Sure. So, I think a lot of people, when they focus on talking about kids, focus on that young stage when they're babies and they're little and, you're so scared to go out. But as I've talked about here, I think it's really important to understand how much travel changes once you hit the teen years. That hit me like a ton of bricks. And I wanted to be able to share with you guys the changes that you need to make in your life once that happens. So my topic is talking all about some different tips and tricks for keeping those teens engaged, involved, and making sure to plan your trip to make it something that it's still really fun for the whole family.
That sounds great. So yeah, I think a lot of people will get a lot of that. Even if you don't have kids, it's good to know what the opportunities you'll have. Your life doesn't stop when you have kids. Your travel life doesn't stop when you have kids. So that'll be great. So,
and then in the goodie bag, and in the freebies, I also included a budget planner and for where you can alter the number of, it's a spreadsheet that you can alter the number of people in it. And then like the template I use for putting together plans and sharing with a bunch of people. So even if you're not a family, like that's just a really useful tool.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you so much for joining us today, Robin. If we want to find you on the internet, where's the best place that we can find you?
Sure. So my blog is aroundtheworldwithkids.net, but I'm on all of the social channels. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest at Around the World with Kids blog, and on TikTok at Around the World with Kids. And on Threads as well, I think Around the World with Kids blog. But yeah, so you'll find me on all of the socials with one of those.
Okay, great. So you can check Robin out there. We will have her information in the show notes as well. So if you didn't catch that, it's okay. You can just go ahead and click in the show notes. And we also do have VIP goodie bag in the show notes. So if you want a chance to see her presentation, as well as we had about 30 speakers talking about different topics on points, miles, different travel styles, traveling with family, traveling with kids, entrepreneurship, all different types of topics that relate to travel. You can check that out in the show notes. We have the VIP goodie bag there. And if you enjoyed this podcast, if you learned something new, if there's something that you like that we talked about, if you could leave us a podcast rating and a written review, that really helps us to be able to keep putting on events like the free summit and to be able to continue to put on these events. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.